Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. The Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, testified today before the Senate Intelligence Committee and, as expected, strongly denied that he has had secret or improper interactions with the Russian government.
A suggestion that I participated in any collusion, that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government to hurt this country, which I have served with honor for 35 years, or to undermine the integrity of our democratic process, is an appalling and detestable lie.
Well, that's what he claims. It's always possible that a high-level Russian defector will appear sometime in the future with documents proving that Jeff Sessions is, in fact, a foreign agent, perhaps of a sleeper cell sent to Alabama during the Cold War and activated at Vladimir Putin's request during the last election. That would be a game changer. Otherwise, the Russia conspiracy seemed to hit a cul-de-sac this afternoon in the Senate. But that doesn't mean there are no scandals for Congress to investigate. Here's one, maybe the biggest one of all. Our intel services are corrupt and they're politicized, and they're making it very hard to run the U.S. government. And that may be the point, since they'd clearly like to run it themselves, and they are to some extent. Does that sound like overstatement? Well, consider how much of American politics now revolves around information that's been strategically, often misleadingly and illegally released for political effects. The hearings you watched today are just one example. They took place in part because former FBI Director Jim Comey told senators last week that Sessions may have met Russian Ambassador Kislyak at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington last April. Now, why would Comey think that? Because classified surveillance of Kislyak's conversation suggested it may have happened. That was surveillance released in order to hurt Jeff Sessions, and that, by the way, was apparently false. There are many more examples of this, every day practically. In December, unnamed intelligence sources told the Washington Post that Russia helped Donald Trump win the presidency. A week later, unnamed senior intelligence officials told NBC News that Putin personally was involved in helping Trump win. In February, current and former American officials released the details of a phone call between incoming National Security Advisor Mike Flynn and Ambassador Kislyak of Russia. That call was monitored because Kislyak was being spied on. Flynn's name should have been concealed, of course, but it wasn't. It was unmasked and then leaked, and his career and reputation were subsequently destroyed by all that. Trump's private phone call with the president of Mexico, surveilled by American intelligence and then leaked. His call with the Australian Prime Minister, same thing. With Vladimir Putin, again, leaked by the intel community. How could this possibly have advanced American national security interests, which is what they're supposed to be doing? None of it did. It was entirely political. And then in March, as if to prove this point, a half dozen current and former intel officials told the New York Times how they'd sought to spread classified intelligence information about the Trump campaign as widely as possible throughout government to ensure it would all eventually leak. Now, leaks are as old as government, and sometimes they are welcome. In general, the public ought to know a lot more about government than it does. But we're seeing something new at work here. These are not leaks from political appointees, the kind that form the basis of Bob Woodward's books, the kind we benefit from in journalism a lot. These are strategic leaks, the release of classified intelligence from people whose job it is to collect and safeguard that intelligence. And in that way, it's an utter perversion of the system. We give enormous power to our intelligence agencies, CIA, NSA, the rest of them. We let them listen to our phone calls, read our email, watch us from satellites. We let them do that so they can keep us safe from foreign threats, not so they can pick our political leaders or devise our policies. We have elections to do those things. In a democracy, we're in charge, not them, not unelected bureaucrats. That's changing, and we ought to be worried about that change. But Congress isn't worried because a lot of people there would rather have the policies they prefer than constitutional government. That is worse than immoral. It's a mistake. Once the bureaucracy has shoved aside an elected government, they can easily do it again. And at that point, it's over. Democracy is dead. Fox News Chief Intel Correspondent Catherine Herridge joins us more on today's hearing.
Well, thank you, Tucker. One of the big moments came when the Attorney General testified that he recused himself in March from the ongoing probe because of his Trump campaign role and Justice Department rules, not his alleged contacts with Russians.
I recuse myself from any investigation into the campaign for president, but I did not recuse myself from defending my honor against scurrilous and false allegations.
Another big moment came when Sessions was challenged by a senior Democrat on claims made last week before the same Senate panel by fired FBI Director James Comey.
Mr. Comey said that there were matters with respect to the recusal that were problematic and he couldn't talk about them. What are they?
Why don't you tell me? They are none, Senator Wyden. There are none. I can tell you that for absolute certainty. This is a secret innuendo being leaked out there about me, and I don't appreciate it.
And Sessions debunked widespread media reports that he met with the Russian ambassador in April of last year at Washington's Mayflower Hotel during a major policy speech given by then-candidate Trump. Sessions also insisted he was not blocking Congress when he refused to answer questions about his discussions with the president, citing historic Justice Department policies. Also today, Fox News confirming that the Columbia Law School professor who served as an intermediary between Comey and a New York Times reporter, providing information from memos documenting Comey's conversations with the president. That law professor is now providing relevant material to the special counsel, Robert Mueller. Tucker.
Catherine Herridge, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Well, during today's testimony, Attorney General Sessions expressed his frustration, you just saw it, over the use of anonymous leaks to sabotage his career.
But some of these leaks, as you well know, are extraordinarily damaging to the United States security. And we have got to restore a regular order principle. We cannot have persons in our intelligence agencies, our investigative agencies, or in Congress leaking sensitive matters on staff. So this is, I'm afraid, will result in, is already resulting in investigations, and I'm fear that some people may find that they wish they hadn't leaked.
Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney represents New York State. He's been a critic of the Attorney General for months now. Now that Sessions has finally testified, has his view changed? He joins us now to tell us. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Good to be with you.
So I don't expect you to agree with the Attorney General's policies or his core beliefs as a senator, but I think we can both agree that when the former FBI director comes into open testimony and suggests, as he did, that Sessions had some sort of untoward ties to Russia or done something wrong that he couldn't explain publicly and therefore had to recuse himself from the Russia investigation, that's impugning a man's character without being specific about it, therefore unfair, and it's awful to do that to Sessions.
Well, I think you're putting a little bit of a spin on it. The fact is that the Attorney General did recuse himself because of his conflicts in the area, and so that's all the FBI director was saying.
That's not what he said. He actually said the opposite.
Excuse me. I appreciate that there was a bit of a. I appreciate that there was a bit of an air left there of impropriety, and I agree with you. Is what I'm trying to say.
What he said was there were other reasons. I think I'm quoting him. There are other reasons, but I can't say what they were in public. He goes behind closed doors with the senators and says, "We believe that he may have met with the Russian ambassador a third time at the Mayflower Hotel in April." That's exactly what you don't want the guardians of your national intelligence to do. Use it for political reasons unfairly against a citizen.
Right, but you wouldn't have said that about Mark Felt, who was an FBI agent who was deep throat.
I'm not sure what you mean. I would always say that it's wrong for intelligence officers or people whose job it is to hold these secrets to use them against others for political reasons.
Well, let me just stop you right there. So you would prefer that we had never known about the Watergate scandal?
I would prefer that people's jobs and careers and reputations weren't destroyed by the selective leaking of inaccurate information.
Right. Well, a lot of White House aides went to jail over Watergate. Their careers were destroyed.
But that's exactly the point I'm making.
It is exactly the point.
The point I'm making is that the former FBI director and a series of Democrats in Congress suggested that Jeff Sessions had done something improper with Russia. They weren't specific about it because they didn't have the facts. They were trying to impugn his character, his reputation. He testifies openly today, and at the end of it, are you convinced that he's not a Russian agent?
Listen, I am actually not that concerned with what Jeff Sessions did, and I think you are making a fair point that he has come in for a lot of suggestions of inappropriate activity with the Russians without a lot of proof. But there is a mountain of evidence that people like Michael Flynn and Paul Manafort were getting paid improperly, lied about it, are very likely to face criminal prosecution. As a matter of fact, exactly that. Michael Flynn has admitted taking tens of thousands of dollars for a speech in Moscow, didn't disclose it. As a former military officer, he was required to, didn't get permission, lied about it on his forms, and did the same thing with his interactions with Kislyak. That's almost certainly a crime, Tucker, and I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned that we not muddy up the two things. You can be properly worried about people leaking.
Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General of the United States, just testified all afternoon. Mike Flynn didn't. I mean, I'm talking about the sitting Attorney General who has been the subject of these implications that he's somehow betraying his country.
Right, and when you take these positions, sometimes you take some hits. And the fact is that the last time he testified falsely under oath. That's not in dispute. He testified falsely about a meeting with the Russian Ambassador Kislyak, who we know is the chief spy master here in the U.S.
Well, actually, it is in dispute.
So that's why there were some questions.
Let's not, if you're going to stipulate it, let's be clear. It is in dispute, and his position is, I was not acting. He was asked by the senator from Minnesota, were you acting as a Trump surrogate? His position was he wasn't. Okay, so like there's a different interpretation.
Well, no,
but are you suggesting that he was having improper contact with the Russians? Like, what are you saying?
Did not say that. Excuse me. What I said was he testified falsely, and he admitted as such later when he went out and sought to amend his remarks. He also failed to correct that testimony for months. That's why there are some questions.
I don't think he admitted that he testified falsely.
I think if you watch his press conference, he said
I've spoken about it on this set.
Right.
And my only point is, look, what is this about?
Well,
it's about the implication that he's working for the Russians.
Well,
and like, what the hell is that?
No, your point just changed. The fact is that he testified falsely, and that raised some questions. That's why we want to hear about him.
I'm not accepting that point, and neither is he.
There's a couple other important points. Let's talk about those. One, he recused himself from the Russian investigation.
Correct.
The President of the United States said that the firing of the director of the FBI was at least in part or certainly related to that investigation. There's a lot of legitimate questions about why Jeff Sessions was involved in that when he's recused. That's also why he was brought up today.
So are you saying, are you, not my job to defend Jeff Sessions, but it does seem nonsensical to say that the head of the Justice Department, who oversees the director of the FBI, can't supervise the director of the FBI because there's a Russian investigation going on. Is he recusing himself from running the Justice Department?
No, but he should be recused from a conversation about firing that individual because of that investigation, and that's the point.
I think everyone would agree that there are multiple reasons Jim Comey was fired.
Well, the president gave us the primary one.
Well, the president gave us a number of them, and one of them was his conduct more generally, his conduct earlier, whatever. But the point is, Jeff Sessions runs the Justice Department. Are you saying that he shouldn't be involved in decisions about the future of the FBI director?
In fact, I think what we understand is that Rod Rosenstein and Jeff Sessions gave reasons why Jim Comey might be dismissed. I happen to agree with those concerning his conduct in the last campaign. But it was the president who said, I was thinking about Russia, and that's the point.
Okay.
The point is that if the firing's about Russia and Sessions is recused from Russia, he should not be involved in the firing. It's pretty simple stuff.
Okay, it's not actually simple in any way, and you're making it so because it makes a clear political hit. But the truth is, it's complex. There are a lot of reasons, and you may agree or disagree with some of them, but it's not just about Russia. And the point is, again, the guy runs the Justice Department. You don't want him to. You didn't support him being there in the first place. I get it, but a Democrat didn't win the presidency, so you didn't get to make that choice.
Right.
And so the idea that he can't run the agency he's in charge of.
Didn't say that.
Okay, so what are you saying exactly?
Didn't say that. He can absolutely run the agency for as long as the president wants him to, but he should not be involved in Russia.
Okay, so
and the firing was about Russia.
Look, wouldn't it just be a little easier? Wouldn't it be a little easier if you disagree with the Trump administration's policies on various things, to just explain why you disagree with those, rather than try to derail the whole executive branch of government with an insane Russia conspiracy? Can we just admit Jeff Sessions was not working on behalf of the Russians? He's a patriotic American just like you are. And we're going to drop the innuendo and the McCarthyite tactics because it's counterproductive.
Right. Well, what we know is that all of the people we pay to do this tell us that we faced an unprecedented attack by a hostile power. Some of us want to know what the extent of that was. In the last few days, we've learned that the Russians now access 39 states' electoral systems. We don't know why. We don't know the extent of the damage. That's on top of what we knew about what they did to the DNC.
I'm sorry. I thought that Jeff Sessions was a senator from Alabama and Donald Trump was a presidential candidate when that happened. Barack Obama was the president when that happened. I mean, look, you're conflating things. The truth is Jeff Sessions had nothing to do with Russia hacking into various computer systems, and there's no evidence to suggest otherwise. So why continue this charade?
Tucker, what we know is that the Russians were laser focused on lifting the sanctions against their regime as a result of the invasion of Crimea and Ukraine. They were successful in having the Republican Party platform changed. We don't know how or why. We should.
That's ridiculous.
Let me finish.
That's absurd.
Excuse me.
You're saying things are just dumb. We don't know that.
They did change the platform, and we don't know why.
The platform committee. I was there. I didn't see any. Was Kislyak there? I didn't see any Russians in the platform committee.
Excuse me. We know the platform committee was changed, and that was an objective.
Because of the Russians. Were they in the meeting?
I didn't say that.
What are you saying?
If I did, I said we should find out why it was changed. But here's the point.
No, you just said the Russians got it changed in the Republican platform.
Well, then I misspoke.
You don't know that.
No, I wouldn't make that allegation, but we ought to get to the bottom of it. No, listen to me.
Okay.
Listen, Tucker.
So anyone who's against sanctions, I'm against sanctions on Russia.
Why?
Does that make me a tool of Putin?
Because you don't care about the invasion of Ukraine or Crimea? Because
No, I
you
don't think those are central to American interests. Actually, no. I have a legitimate policy disagreement. Am I a spy too?
No, you're not a spy.
Oh, I'm not. So we can have a legitimate disagreement without you calling me names?
But it is a mystery why they changed that platform. But listen, here's the larger point that I think we're addressing. Let me finish. Is that the fact is that the Russians engaged in this attack? We should find out why. We should do it in a way that's fair and that gets to the facts. And Bob Mueller should be allowed to do his work.
He is allowed to do his work. You're implying that the Russians were somehow in charge of the Republican Party's platform, that they had an influence on the positions of the candidate or the campaign of the party. Can I ask you a question? Does it bother you that the administration officials are refusing to answer without invoking executive privilege in front of a United States Senate committee? It depends what. I mean, I think there's a look, I always want to know more information rather than less. But I do think it's fair for government officials in any administration to say that is privileged information I'm giving to someone I'm working for. That's a long-standing principle. But the president hasn't invoked executive privilege. As you know, that's exactly right. And so on what basis is the Attorney General refusing to testify? Well, he could say, look, there's no national interest at stake. There's no reason for me. I don't want to divulge what I said to the president. And if it comes down to it, we're going to invoke executive privilege. Okay, you could debate that. I don't have strong feelings about it. What I have strong feelings about is that Democrats are trying to win a political argument by impugning the character of people by suggesting they're treasonous. Right. These committees that's wrong. These committees are chaired by Republicans. You understand that? I'm aware. Both committees. I don't care. And the Senate. I literally don't care of the party ID because people like you are leading an innuendo-based charge against your political opponents. You're talking about Senator McCain and Senator Burr, and you're talking about Mike Conaway, the Republican interim chair in the House. I think they're at fault for letting this grotesque charade continue. Right. Well, those aren't Democrats, Tucker. So let's distinguish those two things. And on the subject of executive privilege, you were outraged on this network in 2012 when the Fast and Furious Committee was not allowed to get information without. I don't remember my outrage at the time. Right. Well, consistency is a difficult thing. Luckily, we looked it up. Okay. And on this. You looked it up. Okay. Oh, you got me there. You got me there. You were outraged. No, I was in Moscow taking orders, getting my payments. Thank you, Congressman. Why are you not outraged? I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about. We can figure out commercial break until we have to go. We interviewed Sessions 3 months ago on March 2nd. During that interview, he was entirely forthcoming, or seemed to be, about the nature of his meetings with Kislyak during the RNC in Cleveland. According to news reports, you met twice with the Russian ambassador in person, Ambassador Kislyak, and had one phone conversation with him. Is that the extent of your contact with him, those 3 events? I don't remember whether I had a phone call conversation with him or not. I spoke at the Republican convention at a conference with some 50 ambassadors. After I spoke, I walked down from the podium and mingled with a number of people, and we met at that occasion and had a chat. Otherwise, and I left shortly thereafter. So that's the only 2 times that I recall having met him. Perhaps I have. I'm on the Armed Services Committee, and sometimes you meet people like that, but I don't recall having met him any other time. Why do you think the Russian ambassador wanted to meet with you a couple of times? What was their objective? I didn't have a meet with him a couple of times, Tucker. I met with him after I spoke, and we chatted on the floor of this meeting, and then he called to meet with me. I literally met with 25 ambassadors during this period of time, and many of them were attempting to sell their country, assert the issues that they thought were important to their public safety and their issues that they felt were necessary for them. And I just listened, frankly. Very little occurred in those meetings, but I kind of enjoyed them. It was a good experience. It made sense in the months since how much of what Sessions said has proved to be untrue. None of it that we have seen. Sessions admitted there could be a short encounter he may have forgotten about, which is the exact crisis that brought about today's hearing. So again, we ask, why did the Senate pull this off in the first place? Why did this hearing happen? For the answer to that question, we go to really our favorite person to ask these questions of, and that is Brit Hume, our chief political correspondent. So, Brit, what was the point of this?
Well, I think the point of it was to give Sessions a chance to clear his name, which had been dragged through the mud over a period of months now by various leaks and suggestions and innuendos, including the most recent batch from James Comey himself, who, by the way, did not have a good day today. And I think this is a hearing that should not have needed to be held, but it was, so that Sessions, by the way, appearing before a group of men and women who know him very well and have known him, most of them, for many years, and know that he is basically a decent and honorable man of whom it would be almost absurd to imagine that he would be colluding with the Russians on anything. He's, after all, was a conservative senator from Alabama with a very hawkish record. So the absurdity on the face of it hasn't mattered.
So in other words, he was tough on Russia when it actually mattered, when they're holding half the world hostage. He
exactly right, and there was never any real evidence that he colluded. Basically, what we ended up talking about was meetings with the Russian ambassador. It's possible to think of things more commonplace in Washington than officials and members of Congress meeting with the Russian ambassador, but it's not that easy. The Russian ambassador has, for this man and his predecessors have been around town for years. They meet with all kinds of people. The last time I was in the Senate dining room was some years ago. The Russian ambassador was in there having lunch with Dianne Feinstein. I never gave it a second thought, and why would I? Such meetings happen all the time. They mean nothing. And I noticed your previous guest was referring to the ambassador as the chief spy master. I don't think he's the chief spy master.
He looks like the chief lunch haver to me. So I guess what I object to is in effect, the criminalization of policy differences. So the idea that if you're against sanctions on Russia, and there are reasons to be against them, that somehow you're doing the bidding of Vladimir Putin. Like, can't you have a legitimate disagreement without accusing someone of treason?
Of course you can, but that's not what this is about. The people who are raising these accusations don't really think that anybody's committed treason. They're looking for ways to bring down Donald Trump and get at the people around him. That's what this is about, and it's what it's been about from the start. To them, his election is unthinkable, a catastrophe for our nation. I know they sincerely believe this, and that this cannot be allowed to proceed. And they're trying everything they can. And this idea that the Russians colluded and somehow perhaps even helped to arrange the election of Donald Trump has been a piece of it for a long time. The problem has been from the beginning, no evidence. Evidence of Russian attempts to intervene in the election, to influence the election, have been present everywhere. Evidence of collusion with Donald Trump and the people around him has been in very, very short supply, to the point now where you notice that the collusion story is sliding away from us now. We're not hearing that much more about it. They got nothing out of this today. They didn't get anything on collusion out of Comey either. So now we're talking about, well, maybe there was obstruction of justice, you see, in the firing of Comey. So we're very far afield from what these investigations, the congressional and the Justice Department, the FBI investigations, were supposed to be about from the start, which was the whole panoply of Russian efforts. It has been described one way and one way only from the start, a counterintelligence investigation, which is to say that the FBI, in carrying this out under Comey and since, has been acting as an intelligence agency, investigating to find out what kind of spying activity went on against the United States.
Which is totally legitimate. Exactly. This is why I love talking to you, because you bring perspective.
So
Thank you for that.
That's where this is supposed to be. It is strayed very far afield.
Very far away. Attorney General Sessions didn't say anything incriminating today. At least one person says he still must resign because of what he said. That person will join us next.
Western people don't know much about you. No rules. Why did Russia hack the election?
The Putin Interviews, a 4-night event only on Showtime. Start your free trial now.
We're no strangers to... Hey, I'm the internet. I know a bunch of people who would love that.
The internet loves what you're doing. So build a better website in under an hour with Go Central from GoDaddy. The internet is waiting. Start for free today at GoDaddy.
At Farmers, we've seen almost everything, so we know how to cover almost anything, even a coop soup.
So beautiful.
Beautiful just like you.
Oh, thank
And we covered it November 6, 2009. Talk to farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
9 out of 10 of our drivers recommend their cars. Now their words are part of our very fabric. The 2017 Mitsubishi Outlander and Outlander Sport. Come in now and get $3,000 cash back or 0% APR plus $500 cash back.
I used to handwrite lists to find out which website had my ideal hotel for the cheapest. Just scribbling all my options underneath each other. Well, Trivago does exactly that for me, saving me lots of time and money. Hotel? Trivago.
Pain relievers might all seem the same, but Salonpas Pain Relief Patch is the first and only FDA-approved OTC topical NSAID and the strongest labeled pain reliever available without a prescription. Salonpas for tough pain.
Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7. Channel 115.
Jeff Sessions, the full story. The attacks, his answers. Where do we go from here? Sean gets real about what's next for the administration. Then, Tucker's live with expert insight tonight.
To celebrate Cohen's 90th anniversary, get a complete pair of eyeglasses for only $90. Find on-trend styles. Get an on-site eye exam. With our experienced eye stylists, Cohen's will make your eyes happy today. Cohen's, making you look good and feel good for 90 years.
Stop waiting and start living the club lifestyle you've always wanted. Come home to Long Island's premier active adult community, the Manners at the Colony Preserve. Enjoy maintenance-free living and resort-style amenities, plus a spectacular clubhouse with heated pool. All less than 2 miles from the ocean. Discover the best 55-plus value on Long Island, priced from $289.9. The Manners at the Colony Preserve. Stop waiting. Call 631-772-6770.
So shopping for a car this week got you all these dealers promising to save you big, but when you get there, they just make you... Well, get down to Atlantic Hyundai on Sunrise Highway in West Islip for the best deals this week.
Director Comey was sitting in front of the president's desk and they were talking. So that's what I do remember. I believe it was the next day that he said something, expressed concern about being left alone with the president. But that in itself is not problematic. He did not tell me at that time any details about anything that was said that was improper.
Well, the Attorney General frustrated Democrats today by thwarting their attempt to expose more information about the firing of the FBI Director, Jim Comey. Arash Aramesh is a national security analyst and says the Attorney General's testimony today shows that he must resign. He joins us now to explain why that might be. Arash, why should he resign?
Well, let's begin by explaining that Mr. Sessions should not have been there to begin with as Attorney General. But since President Trump values loyalty so much, and he happens to create a little cult of personality around him, Mr. Sessions, this senator, embattled as a nominee for a federal courtship. He finally got the position. Now, I'm not saying, and let's be clear about this,
okay,
Tucker, I'm not saying any of these guys are traitors.
What's the point?
I'm not.
Okay. Oh, you're not saying they're traitors.
Okay, traitors.
How
not at all.
Okay.
Far from it.
Right.
Unlike your camp that called President Obama not an American, they called him a Muslim from Kenya and so on and so forth. None of these guys are traitors. Having said that, Tucker, having said that, these were grown adult men, most of whom are patriotic Americans who thought it would be a good idea to get help from a foreign adversary to get their guy elected because they thought Hillary Clinton was a nasty woman and she should have never gotten elected president. That's what they did, and they're going to get, and they're going to pay for it.
Oh yeah, they're going to pay for it. Their trials for treason are coming up soon. I guess this is almost rhetorical.
I didn't say treason. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say treason.
They're just colluding with a foreign government to subvert our democracy.
Absolutely.
Right, it's not treason.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you have any evidence at all, or is this just something that you heard on MSNBC and you're repeating for our benefit?
Well, if you actually happen to read newspapers, which is a good thing to do, New York Times, Washington Post, or if you read memos that come from the DIA, DNI, NSA, CIA, FBI, or for instance, the National Reconnaissance Office, you will see that there are 17 or intelligence and law enforcement agencies that would say, you know what, Tucker, pick up a newspaper and check it out.
Yeah,
you should. You know what, you should. You're in the news business. You're in the news business. You're no longer in entertainment. You're in the news business, and you should check out a paper. You know what?
Ever done. But wait a second. Wait, hold on just one sec. Do you have any evidence that the Attorney General of the United States, the former Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, had any improper contact with the Russian government and that it influenced his views about American policy on Russia? Do you have, I mean, none of that evidence came out in today's testimony, but maybe you're privy to something from the National Reconnaissance Agency, or since you read their documents, you said.
It's not National Reconnaissance Agency, it's National Reconnaissance Office. If you ask one of your frat buddies, they might actually send you some literature on that, Tucker. But here's the thing. Jeff Sessions, if Jeff Sessions or people like Jeff Sessions, such as Kushner, or people like Kushner, such as Flynn, are not worried about a thing, they should testify. They should testify openly. They shouldn't invoke the Fifth Amendment. They shouldn't invoke executive privilege. They shouldn't. And he kept talking about how he didn't remember. He's a former prosecutor.
Now we're almost
out of time. He has a bad memory.
The sands are flying through the hourglass now, but do you have any evidence, again, that Jeff Sessions had improper contact with the Russian government and that in some way influenced his behavior that undercut American interests in favor of Russian interests, that he did something wrong? Do you have any evidence of that at all?
There is a lot of circumstantial evidence that links him to improper behavior. He recused himself, and guess what?
So on the
when
basis,
someone comes out, here's a line. I know you don't like to read, but here's another line.
It's
from Shakespeare.
It's
from Shakespeare. Check this one out. Ask one of your frat buddies to send you this book. It's from Shakespeare. It says, "Methinks the lady doth protest too much." Look it up, see what it means. But when someone comes on TV,
what play is that from? Do you know?
You actually should look it up. I'll give you 2 points. It's either Macbeth or Hamlet, but you look it up because it's actually good.
All right. Yeah.
Look it up. I'll give you two options. Look up Macbeth.
Okay, very quickly, I just want to ask you about an exchange that happened today. We have actual tape of this. I don't think you saw the hearings, but here's one exchange that took place between Tom Cotton, the Arkansas Republican. Watch this.
Do you like spy fiction? Have you ever, in any of these fantastical situations, heard of a plot line so ridiculous that a sitting United States senator and an ambassador of a foreign government colluded at an open setting with hundreds of other people to pull off the greatest caper in the history of espionage?
Thank you for saying that, Senator Cotton. It's just like through the looking glass. I mean, what is this?
Now, if a person would collude with a foreign government, a person in authority, like a senator or a sitting attorney general, that person would be a deeply bad and immoral person, even really an evil person, someone selling out his own country. Is that really what you're saying about Attorney General Jeff Sessions?
You know, the first thing I said coming on your show, Tucker, was I don't think these men are traitors, but I think they thought it would be a good idea to get some help from anybody, including a foreign adversary, to get their boy elected. That's a problem. They're going to pay for it. And guess what, Tucker? We got Democrats in this country. We got Republicans. We got conservatives. You've been on for a long time. You've been around for a long time. But the third group of people that are scary and dangerous, and I hope someone like you don't well, I got an Apple Watch too. It's actually nice you get one. But the third group of people are called Trump loyalists. And if he's creating a cult of personality, it's your responsibility and it's your duty to question that and to bring that down. Because if you don't do that...
Let me just, I think our viewers have had a pretty good chance to assess your level of knowledge of this story and your views on it. Let me ask you now, do you speak to Democratic members of the House or Senate about this? Do you advise any current Democratic office holders on the Russia question?
You would be surprised. You would be surprised. But any conversations I do or don't have with members of Congress or people who are in the intelligence community is confidential. So if you want to subpoena me to come to Fox, you don't have subpoena powers.
No, I'm not suggesting that you be subpoenaed. I don't believe in that.
Oh, he can't subpoena me. I mean, if you knew a thing, I know you're not a lawyer. I know you're not a lawyer, but let me give you a little law 101, Tucker. I know you're not a lawyer. But you should have learned this in college that if you want to subpoena someone, you want to subpoena some. I mean, I know you're not a lawyer, but like you know, I can give you a little 101. But I'll send you a bill for that though. So you know, you let me know.
Okay. I'm afraid we're out of time. It's just an amazing conversation. It says it all. Arash, thanks a lot for joining us. I guess.
You bet.
Well, the Post nightclub shooting happened a year ago. Up next, journalist Chadwick Moore will be here to talk about how a vigil honoring the victims of that massacre was hijacked by political activists. They'll tell us what happened next. Stay tuned.
all-new Discovery. Land Rover, above and beyond.
Think you know New York State? Think again. This is the new New York. We are building new airports all across the state. New roads and bridges. New mass transit. New business-friendly environment. New lower taxes. And new university partnerships to grow the businesses of tomorrow today. Learn more at esd.ny.gov.
Where are Mom and Dad? Save money on motorcycle insurance with Geico going up the country. Love, Mom and Dad. I'm taking a nap. Dude, you just woke up.
Going up the country, baby, don't you wanna go? I'm going up the country, baby, don't you wanna go?
Geico Motorcycle. Great rates for great rides.
It's not how fast you mow, it's how well you mow fast.
It's not how fast you mow, it's how well you mow fast.
It's not how fast you mow, it's how well you mow fast. It's not how fast you mow, it's how well you mow fast.
They're not just words to mow by, they're words to live by. The John Deere Z-Track Z345R with the Excel Deep Deck to mow faster, better. Save $500 on the Z525E Z-Track residential mower at your John Deere dealer today.
When you're close to the people you love, does psoriasis ever get in the way of a touching moment? If you have moderate to severe psoriasis, you can embrace the chance of completely clear skin with Taltz. Taltz is proven to give you a chance at completely clear skin. With Taltz, up to 90% of patients had a significant improvement of their psoriasis plaques. In fact, 4 out of 10 even achieved completely clear skin. Do not use if you are allergic to Taltz. Before starting, you should be checked for tuberculosis. Taltz may increase your risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Tell your doctor if you are being treated for an infection or have symptoms, or if you have received a vaccine or plan to. Inflammatory bowel disease can happen with Taltz, including worsening of symptoms. Serious allergic reactions can occur. Now's your chance at completely clear skin. Just ask your doctor about Taltz.
My business was built with passion, but I keep it growing by making every dollar count. That's why I have the Spark Cash Card from Capital One. With it, I earn unlimited 2% cash back on all of my purchasing. And that unlimited 2% cash back from Spark means thousands of dollars each year going back into my business, which adds fuel to my bottom line. What's in your wallet?
Apple CarPlay. 4 distinct drive modes. Test drive one at your Acura dealer today. This is the new 2018 Acura TLX.
Yeah.
Visit your Acura dealer today for attractive offers on the new 2018 Acura TLX.
Well, yesterday was the one-year anniversary of the Pulse nightclub massacre, in which Islamic radical Omar Mateen murdered 49 people at a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Well, to commemorate the shooting, a vigil was held in New York City outside the Stonewall Inn, site of a 60s gay rights demonstration. But instead of just remembering the victim, the vigil became an anti-gun rally. Journalist Chadwick Moore was there at the vigil, and he joins us now to tell us what happened next. So, Chadwick, this was supposed to be a vigil for the people who died, almost 50 who died in that massacre, but it became something else?
That's right. I think most people showed up. The Stonewall is sort of gay. It's a gay holy site, right? It's the equivalent of Mecca for Muslims. It's where everyone goes when there's a large event that has affected the community, whether that's tragic or celebratory. It's where people would have instinctively shown up to commemorate the one-year anniversary. What happened was this far left anti-gun group essentially got the permit, I'm assuming, to hold a rally that day yesterday outside of Stonewall, and they were the sponsors of this event. So people who were coming to mourn, who were coming to be together to reflect, who want to give politics a break, instead were being subjected to this sort of anti-gun propaganda, all of these signs, all of this anti-Trumpism.
So is that really the message of Omar Mateen's ISIS-inspired murder spree, that guns are bad?
I didn't. Apparently, according to this group, there was no reference to Islam that I heard whatsoever. Trump was the bad guy in the room for some reason. As we all know, Trump came to Orlando immediately after the shooting. The president waited 4 or 5 days, President Obama. But the message that the take-home is that this was about guns and only guns.
It was. I mean, I'm sorry to laugh, but I mean, ISIS has bragged about. I mean, first of all, they endorsed the killings at the nightclub, at Pulse nightclub in Orlando, because a lot of people who were killed were gay. And they said, we're glad that all these gay people died. And they've also bragged about murdering people for being gay in the territories that they hold. None of the people at this rally noted that?
Well, this is the strange, this is sort of the strange phenomenon that when you have large, dense populations of leftists, whether that's on the college campus or if that's in the gay community, that the small group of the loudest, most mentally and emotionally unhinged push their way to the front, seize a microphone, and bully everyone into going along with them. Yesterday, I'm very, very political on social media. Yesterday, because I was so personally affected emotionally affected by the tragedy, I said, I'm not posting anything political today. I'm going to post about remembering the victims. I'm going to post about celebrating their lives. But, attacking radical Islam can wait till Tuesday. This group couldn't wait 2 hours. And so they subjected everyone who showed up into their radical ideology. And, most gay people aren't political. Most gay people, they care about pop music and going to the beach. But they probably don't know what the Second Amendment is. And so they show up to be together, to celebrate the community, to mourn together. And instead, they're just fed this anti-gun nonsense.
Well, it's just weird, though. I mean, whatever you think of guns or wherever you are on gun control, here's this group that hates you, that wants to kill you for who you are and says so out loud. And yet organizations like this are madder at Chick-fil-A than they are at radical Islam. I just find it inexplicable. I don't understand why. Why wouldn't you be, I don't know, fighting back against a group that says it wants to kill you?
It is so mind-blowing. It makes no sense whatsoever. It is one of the great, bizarre paradoxes of the left, where they're bringing these people, these groups together that you're absolutely right. Extreme radical Muslims, ISIS want us dead. They're not fighting so they don't have to bake our cake for our wedding. They want us dead. Their philosophy preaches it, and the left is silent. The media still won't call it terrorism. The Washington Post yesterday, the Washington Compost, as we call it, they would not say Islam or they would not say terrorism in their reporting on the 1-year anniversary at all. It was gun violence, even in the Washington Post.
Boy, it's like they're so ideological that they subvert their own interests. They refuse to see what's in their own interest because it's somehow not allowed.
And people, especially I see gay people, and I know many other people on the left are waking up to this every day, and they're fleeing. They are fleeing the left in droves. And I think radical Islam is one of the huge reasons for that, especially for gay people. They see that this makes no sense, and now they know that the right, they don't wish us any harm, people on the right.
Well, yeah, and you certainly see that in Europe. I mean, that's absolutely a trend in Europe. The nationalist parties have big support from the gay community. Chadwick, thanks a lot for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tucker. Thanks.
Great to see you. We'll have an update on the case of Otto Warmbier, the sad case. 17 months after he was originally arrested by the North Korean regime, he has finally been returned to his family. His release was announced this morning by the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, who provided few details about how exactly it happened. Unfortunately, not all is well, though. Warmbier is in a coma, reportedly has been in one for more than a year. The North Koreans say, and you of course cannot trust what they say, that he developed botulism, it's a form of food poisoning, and fell into a coma after taking a sleeping pill. That's what they said. We don't know if that's true. Regardless of the circumstances, though, Fred and Cindy Warmbier have been reunited with their son. We'll have an exclusive interview with the two of them tomorrow from Cincinnati about Otto's release. Despite the release of Otto Warmbier, 3 other Americans do remain imprisoned in North Korea, and the country is still a nuclear threat to the United States. Does this new development mean anything for U.S.-North Korean relations? Rick Grinnell might know. He's the former U.S. spokesman at the UN. He joins us tonight. So, Rick, what can you tell us about the release of Otto Warmbier? We don't have a lot of details.
Well, first of all, this is a total win for diplomacy. This has been happening for a while. My sources have told me that specifically Rex Tillerson brought the case to President Trump in the Oval Office within the first 30 days of President Trump taking over. And President Trump looked at Secretary Tillerson and said, do everything you can. You have the full assets of the U.S. government to get this done. From there was a series of diplomacy. In Norway, we had our diplomats meeting with the Swedes, who do have a post inside North Korea. The Swedes were then allowed to go visit Otto. In that meeting is when the Swedes were able to confirm to the U.S. diplomats that this was a very serious situation, that he was in a coma. From there, we went to the what we call the New York channel for all North Korea diplomacy, and that's because the North Koreans do have a mission to the United Nations, and so we can meet with them up in New York under the auspices of the UN setting. And so U.S. diplomats then met there with the North Koreans, and the North Koreans said, come get them. And a plane went, U.S. government plane with U.S. diplomats landing in North Korea, and they took him out. Now, Tucker, one thing to note here is that he was released. No Taliban prisoners were swapped. No planes full of money were given. This was pure diplomacy by the Trump administration. Rex Tillerson and Donald Trump made this a priority. It wasn't a priority under President Obama. Otto was in a coma for more than a year under the Obama presidency, and he just lingered there. It's really atrocious, and kudos to those who actually believe in diplomacy still.
Yeah, I mean, I'm withholding judgment on some of that. I don't think we have all the details, and I think there are questions about how the State Department under both presidents treated the Warmbier family. We're going to find out a lot more about that tomorrow, but there is the sad coda to the case, which is that he is apparently not well and still in a coma. We'll find out. So what does this mean? Does this suggest...
One thing...
Yes.
One thing just to add, Tucker, is that, diplomacy only works if you have the head of the government, the President of the United States, making it a priority. You can't do other stuff. So, if John Kerry was fighting for this, we don't know about it because it wasn't a priority from the Obama White House.
It was not I can say that for certain, having followed this story for a while. It was not a priority for the Obama White House. It was not a priority for John Kerry, and it's shameful. And I hope it was a priority for the State Department under this president. Does this suggest some changing relationship between North Korea and the United States? Why did they do this now? Was there some incentive offered? And what about the 3 Americans who remain in that country?
Well, first of all, one thing to note is that the State Department actually believes that there are more than 3. The media have been reporting 3, but we have high suspicions that there are other Americans inside there, too. What this really means for diplomacy is it's a good day for diplomacy. Whenever we're able to talk to the North Koreans directly and to, take a small step like this and reassure them that we're going to go, we're going to pick them up, we're going to bring them home, and we thank them for this one little thing, it does begin to build some sort of confidence. We've got a long way to go because the North Koreans are not a rational government, and we know that they've been trying to put the pieces together for a nuclear program. So we've got some very serious and tough issues faced before us, but the New York channel, when it comes to diplomacy, utilizing that New York channel is a very good thing.
It's a disgusting government run by monsters, and they hurt this boy, and they let him languish in a coma for over a year, and you would love for there to be some way to punish them for that, really punish them for that, but there probably isn't one, is there?
I think there's a whole list of things that the North Koreans should be punished for. This is one of them, absolutely.
This one. Yeah.
And I do think, though, that the special relationship that Donald Trump is pushing with the Chinese on, and we have seen some action from the Chinese when it comes to North Korean diplomacy, unlike at any other time, I do think that we can do more to push the Chinese. We haven't considered banking sanctions. We haven't considered some of the really tough sanctions that would get the Chinese government's attention. I think that we should. I think that we should have the full tool belt, so to speak, of the U.S. government at the disposal, because this is a very serious issue, not because of just auto, but certainly because they are a threat and they have a motive to come at the United States, and they are trying to get the tools to send a missile our way. So I think what we must do is make this a top priority with the Chinese, and we haven't done that enough.
You can't hurt American citizens with impunity, or else, why have a U.S. government, in my opinion. Rick, thanks a lot for joining us. Great to see you tonight.
Thanks, Tucker.
Tune in tomorrow.